Spaniard conquistadors. Who are they today? This is a topic that we're going to be covering in detail here today, because my people, who we would call African Americans, blacks, Negroes, we don't seem to understand what has happened to us on this land. We don't understand who has done this to us on this land. We don't understand history at all. But I'm gonna break this down for you guys. And this stuff here is serious, because the truth is offensive. But we don't care about who the truth offends over here. We're just doing a great edification here, because this needs to be known. So we're gonna cover today the Spaniard conquistadors of ancient times, from the 1500s, the early 1500s, that came to America. We're going to cover that, and we're going to see exactly who these people were dealing with when they arrived on the shores of America. We're going to leave no margin of error as to who they were dealing with and who they first encountered on this land in the 1500s. We're going to see if you guys understand what has happened on this land and who have been engaging us in warfare from the very beginning. Because for a lot of years of my life, I didn't quite understand what happened to us as a people like I do now. I'm finna show you exactly who the Spaniard conquistadors were in the ancient times and who they are today, because they're still amongst us. They walk amongst us every day. Their descendants walk amongst us every day. But they don't call themselves by these names anymore. And just so we could keep things in its proper context, we're trying to identify who the Spaniard conquistadors were dealing with when they came to the Americas, who any settler or colonizer was dealing with when they came to the Americas in pre-colonial times. And we're going to be starting when I start to explain when the Spaniards came here, just so you can understand where we're going with this. When the Spaniards came here, it was in the 1500s, the early 1500s. This wall drawing that you're looking at, that's a museum artifact, clearly says that these were the people that we would call Mexicans in 250 BC through 900 AD. I want you guys to let that sink in, because what you call a Mexican today is not this. How did we get to the point where these are not the people of Mexico anymore? Because these people right here are the same as the ones you just seen before on the last depiction. These are the people that occupied the land of Mexico before any pale-skinned person showed up. This is the people of the Guatemala in 730 AD. Now, with that being said, there's absolutely no way that anyone watching this edification can't understand that these are the people that were said to be there from 250 BC. So these had to be the same people there in the 1500s. Let's carry on. The Spanish were among the first Europeans to explore the New World and the first to settle in what is now the United States. By 1650, however, England had established a dominant presence on the Atlantic coast. Now, there's two things I want you guys to notice. I want you to pay attention here. The people that this text right here just called the Spanish are Europeans. Let's get this correct. The people that we call Spanish that's on this land today are the descendants of these people we call Spaniard conquistadors. They are Spaniards from Spain, if you didn't get it. The language of Spanish comes from Spain, and that is in Europe. Now, this fine specimen you're looking at here is Hernando Cortez. He's important in this story. Let's look into him. Now what you're looking at here is a depiction called The Indian Races of North and South America. It's a depiction of this person who we're discussing here named Hernando Cortez meeting up with the Aztec chief named Montezuma in Mexico, and what we would call Mexico today. But the thing about it is, the depiction you're looking at here is not the people that we call the modern day Mexican. Why is that? These are Negroes, the people that we would call the African American today. This is clearly how Montezuma looked from the depiction you just seen before this one. This is clearly how the person looked that he was talking to and everybody that was standing with him. They were Negroes, the people that we would call an African American today. This is the same depiction. Yep, this is the same depiction below. It's the same scenario as the picture that you just seen before this. It's a drawing of Hernando Cortez meeting up with the Aztec chief Montezuma. And that's Montezuma's people to the right behind him, the army that's behind him. And to the left, that's Cortez's people, the Spaniard conquistadors. This also is a historical depiction of Hernando Cortez and the Spaniard conquistador soldiers fighting the Aztec Indians, Montezuma's people. And we can clearly see that these are copper-colored people. The same people that you've seen on a Negro for Sale poster, and the same people that you're going to continue to see as we break this down. Now, I want you people to keep in mind that what you're looking at here is the ancient Mexicans in the 1500s, us. Now, you see this is even a map of Florida. Even the Floridian people were Negroes, and that's all up and down the Gulf of Mexico. Look at it. We talking about from Mexico all the way through Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, and Florida. Look at the people right here. These are the people that were on this land when all settlers came, the so-called African American of today. Now we finna get into who these Spaniard conquistadors would be today, who their descendants are, the direct bloodlines of these people. They still have the same last names and things like that. They still look exactly the same. They just changed their names like they changed ours. When you go to Peru or anywhere, it was us there. Before any settlers came, it was us there. And we got disenfranchised. It should be clear to anyone watching this edification that there were no pale Mexicans in the 1500s in Mexico. But what you're looking at on the screen here, to your left, is the Spaniard conquistador of that time, and to the right you're looking at the actor Gonzalo Garcia Vivianca, who is a Spaniard conquistador, sir. That's a Spaniard conquistador today. Look at them. The people that we call Mexicans are the direct descendants of the Spaniard conquistadors, which makes them Spaniard conquistadors. Now you have two types of Mexicans, and you have the Mexican who has mixed with the indigenous American, who has mixed with the so-called black person. They call them mestizo. That would be a person that's of indigenous ancestry and from Spaniard ancestry. So in essence, the Spaniard conquistador came here from Spain to North, South, Central America. But they landed in South and Central America first, and they have became the Aztec Indian, the Mayan. They actually became everything that we used to be. They are now called the Puerto Rican. They are now called the Mexican, when these people are Spaniard conquistadors by blood. The Hispanic we know today is the Spaniard conquistador of yesterday. It's just that they've been here for so many years that they've mixed with the Filipino, they've mixed with the Asian, the Mongoloid, and they even mixed with the Middle Eastern people. You see some Mexicans look more Middle Eastern, some of them look like a mixture of European and Mongoloid, like an Asiatic looking person. And we're going to get to the bottom of this today. Now, these Mexican gang movies are a perfect example to see the different type of Mexicans that these texts just described. Now, you see this person right here, the dark-skinned Mexican? This is what you would call a mestizo. He's a person clearly mixed with an African-American ancestry who is the true Mayan, Aztec, the Inca, the American Indian. He's a mixture of that and a person of Spaniard conquistador descent, a person from Spain that speaks Spanish, because the only way that you would end up speaking Spanish is if you had Spanish ancestry, like your grandparents or your great-grandparents were from Spain. What you're looking at here is the true American Indian, these brothers in this movie right here. You see the mestizo and the other Spaniard, they talking to the true American Indian, the true Inca, the true Maya, the true Aztec. And this is a fact. I like to call these type of people the apocalypto Indians, because these are the people that they have shown us in Hollywood as the Indian, when we're the Indian. These people are half Spaniard and half American Indian. They like the children of the Spaniard that mix with the Inca, the Aztecs, and the Mayans. We're not mixed with anything. We're full-blooded American Indians. We the Mayans, the Aztec, the Inca, the Blackfoot, the true Americans that was here from the most ancient times. This is what we've been shown, though, and it's not the truth. This is a Spaniard conquistador mixed with an Indian. This is the mestizo, as you can clearly see in this depiction. That's a Spaniard conquistador male from Spain that speaks Spanish. And to the right, that's an American Indian, Mayan, Aztec, Inca, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same people. That's the woman from our side, and that's the Spaniard conquistador to the left. And in the middle of them is the child that they bear together, which we would call a mestizo. How would I know about this? Because I used to be married to one, and I was with her for 22 years, and I was amongst her family, and I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know from dealing with these people. No disrespect to them, but I learned a lot of stuff from dealing with them. As you can see in this depiction here, the one at the bottom, that's me and my ex-wife, who is a person that's of Spaniard conquistador ancestry and American Indian. Her dad was an American Indian, a so-called African American, a black man, just like me. And her mother is what you would call a Puerto Rican. What you people that are African Americans, that claim you're African American, that don't know anything, her mother and her family say that they are Puerto Ricans. But when I was younger and I first met her and stuff, like first 2-3 years I was with her and I started really hanging around her family like that. We used to go to her grandfather's house. And I always thought they was Puerto Ricans because I wasn't all the way in the know about things like I am right now. So, one day we kicking it with her grandfather and I get to talking all this stuff about Puerto Rico and all that. The man jumped up out of his chair, man. He was dead serious about it. He said, "Hey, we know Puerto Rican. I know Puerto Rican, man. I Spaniard." That's just how he said it. I would never forget it. He hit his chest and said, "I Spaniard." And that tripped me out because I never had heard of a Spaniard before. But I do remember when we moved from the projects in 1984, that's when my whole world opened up because we moved to the neighborhood. I wasn't used to being around other ethnic groups. I was used to being in a building with all my own people, a close-knit situation. We moved to K-Town and moved to the neighborhood where the block where I lived at on Keystone. It was all Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, and Filipino people. It was Asians and Hispanics there. And we were just starting to come into this neighborhood. It was a lot of blacks there, but it was a lot of Hispanics and Filipino people there too. And we're going to break this down because I got a lot of knowledge on this as I look back. But as I was kicking it with my girl family, her father get to telling me, like, her grandfather, he like, "I know Puerto Rican, man. I Spaniard." So immediately in my mind, I'm a sharp guy, said, so if he's Spaniard, that means his children not Puerto Ricans because he's saying he from Spain. And the grandmother, she was a person that looked like a mestizo. She was a more dark-skinned Hispanic looking, like a Pueblo Indian looking type of person. She was more of a Mexican that we'll see that was more dark-skinned, like a mestizo. She was of a Spaniard descent and of so-called black descent, if you want to say that, because she was a darker Mexican. But the male, he stood on it that he was a Spaniard. And that's how I started learning about Spaniard conquistadors. This is over 23 years ago. Now, as we go back to ancient times and relook at the phenotype of the Spaniard conquistador, the Spanish person that came here to the Americas from Spain, this looks exactly like a lot of Mexicans that I've seen over my lifetime, that I grew up in the neighborhood with. Look like their fathers, their uncles, some of their grandfathers. But this is not a Mexican you're looking at here, people. This is a person from the early 1500s from Spain. He wasn't called a Mexican yet. This is a Spaniard conquistador. So how is it a Mexican now? It's a Mexican now because they've been occupying the territory of Mexico for hundreds of years. But they're Spaniard conquistadors. Their ancestry is from Spain, Portugal, stuff like that. Same thing for the Puerto Ricans, the ones that don't have any Negro ancestry. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world, you all, but hey, these are Spaniard conquistadors we're looking at here. If they're the descendants of the people that came here in the 1500s, they're Spaniard conquistadors. Meaning that they descend from the land of Spain. They speak Spanish, the language of Spain. Because as I've proved over and over again during the duration of this video, and that I'm going to keep proving, is that this is an artifact of the original Maya, the Mayan, the people that was here since time immemorial. As I showed you in the beginning of this video, they was here in 250 BC before Christ. These are the people that was here since time immemorial, before any other ethnic group came to the shores of this land. This is the government that was on the land. This is an African American with locks tied up into the top of his head into a bun. This is the person that's called an African American that walks the streets of this land today as a foreigner on his own land. The Spanish came here and waged war on the Negro for the land and the resources. all the cocaine, all the marijuana, all the stuff that grew in Peru and all these places that's in South and Central America. They came for that. They came for the temples and stuff you're looking at right now with the murals of us in there with locks, like the brother standing in front of the mural. Look, it's the same people on the wall. They came for that. It's confiscated everything on the land that you had. All the buildings, all the whole communities. They ran folks out of Mexico into Louisiana, into Texas, into Arizona, other places. And how did they do it? They came real deep. They came like an army come when they doing warfare. It's a lot of pictures and depictions showing the wars that we had, the Negroes, the African American that think he African today. It shows us warring with these people. They coming for the temples and stuff like that. This depiction you looking at is them coming for the pyramids, the temples, and the community around it that we lived in, and it's us standing there around it trying to fight them off. But they came and confiscated this stuff. They was burning stuff down. They was killing people. And it was a lengthy war. It just wasn't no overnight stuff. This stuff lasted years and years. But they end up seizing Mexico, and that's why we think the true Mexican is the pale person. That's a Spaniard conquistador in reality. You know, no offense to anybody. We just stand true to history here, because a lot of liars hate to hear the truth, and all they want to do is call names and throw hissy fits. But the truth is the truth, and there's no getting around it. You know, the modern day Hispanic is the direct descendant of these people that we call the Spaniard conquistadors that came out of Spain and settled on this land, and they have been here for 500 or 600 years now, or longer. You know, they was coming here in peace at first. They was coming in peace, but over time, you know, things obviously got out of hand, and there's a lot of war that went on for the land and the resources. As you can see on this depiction, this is Mexico in the 1500s, as the Spanish conquistadors were raiding communities and burning up whole communities and running the people that lived on the land up out of there. They was putting them on the run. They had armor and weaponry that we didn't have. They had guns and armor and stuff like that. So it was really no match for them, you know, after time, because these wars, like I said, went on for long periods of time. Like, we were winning at first when they didn't know the land and stuff like that. Of course, you can't come to somebody's house and beat them up until you really learn the landscape and learn stuff and get allies and people to assist you. And that's what happened. And when they came in, they came in and ran people up out of the communities and took over the whole communities. You know, those of us that didn't dealt with gangs and stuff in our lifetime and that know about gangs and stuff like that, we've seen this happen in our lifetime, you know, with Hispanics, you know, living in the community with Hispanics, and how we be at odds with the Hispanics in the neighborhood back in the day, especially when I was growing up in the 80s. You know, and I'm sure it was serious before that, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, it was real power struggles for neighborhoods and stuff like that, you know, and it still has went on today, because these are the descendants of the same people you're looking at on the screen right now. Let's take a look at some modern day stuff that happened in the 90s.
The Hazard Gang is also well known for their racially motivated attacks against black residents of Ramona Gardens. On August 30th, 1992, Clifford and his wife were watching late-night television when an explosion ripped through the pantry of their apartment. It was not until the couple and their 7 small children were safely outside did Clifford realize that the fire had not been caused by a faulty water heater, but by a firebomb, or that across the street, another black family had just been firebombed minutes earlier. Both families lost virtually all their possessions in the fires. Before that incident, there were only 7 black families that lived in the Ramona Gardens housing projects. Since then, the 2 families targeted by the bombs have moved out, and a 3rd black American family has fled. The last 4 remaining black families requested an emergency transfer, according to the Los Angeles Housing Authority.
See, you are what your ancestors were. They the same as their ancestors. You know, this just told you in this documentary where they were talking about the LA gangs, that they was not trying to live harmonious in a neighborhood in any proximity with the real Indian, with the Negro, the nigger. They was not trying to live harmonious with them. They ran them out of the neighborhood in the first place. If they was from Mexico, they came there and disposed of all of the real Indians out of the area, and they did not want them there. You know, look at these people in this picture. On the left, that's a Spaniard conquistador from Spain. And on the right, they said that's a Mexican today. But look at them. They're the same people. The people that we call Mexicans today, they're Mexicans because they've been in the land of Mexico for quite some time. But if you want to be technical, they are Spaniards. They are the people of Spain, the descendants of Spain.
For the next 20 years, virtually no black people lived at Ramona Gardens. Eventually, black families started moving back into Ramona Gardens, which was a sign of progress. Black Americans were beginning to feel comfortable again in the community. But even then, Hazard gang members still try to intimidate black residents into leaving. Some threats were verbal. Others came in the form of slurs, like the one written in dust that was accumulated on the car of one black resident. In at least one case, a rock was flown through a window. Jeff still holds the rock that was thrown into his house shortly after him and his son moved in. The 49-year-old restaurant cook said, "I still have the rock, just to remind me where I'm at, so I'll never be caught slipping." But still, things seem to be improving slowly. But on the night of May 12, 2014, Carlos, also known as Ryder from Big Hazard, gathered 7 fellow gang members to make Molotov cocktails on the afternoon of Mother's Day. That night, they split into 2 groups of 4 to target black families living in different sections of Ramona Gardens. The group didn't carry cell phones so that police couldn't track their movements, and purposely followed a route through Ramona Gardens where most security cameras couldn't record them. With some wearing masks and wielding hammers, they smashed windows of 4 apartments and tossed in ignited Molotov cocktails. Molotov cocktails are glass bottles that are filled with gasoline. In one apartment, the cocktail landed on a couch where a woman and her baby had been sleeping just moments earlier. The woman moved when she heard the window break. Authorities said Carlos cut his arm on broken glass while throwing one of the Molotov cocktails. He was apparently bleeding so bad he had to go to the hospital for treatment. Carlos Hernandez and several other members of the Hazard gang were charged and pleaded guilty to federal hate crimes and civil rights charges. Carlos was sentenced to 16 years in a state prison.
Yo soy Mr. Chico. La loca Bunny. El loco Trino. Loco Pucci. Loco Ferrigno. Yo Zombie. La loca Baby Girl. La loca Chita. Soy loco Frijol. Soy loco Bulldog. Puro nombre, known as the God of Hellfire. Loco Smiley 60. Que pues si chino, no? Puro Rhino y Gears. Que loco Greaser. Dancing Dan. Que. Big Bad 60s. Puro sapo de 60s nomás. Live as your camp.